Kia ora, morena everyone. We'll make a start. Welcome to all our members who are here. We've got quite a few councillors and members who are on their way, but we've got a huge agenda today, so we're going to try and keep to time. First of all, welcome to our members of the public who are here, our representatives of local boards, the media and everybody else. And of course our staff. So apologies first. Sorry, that sounds very echoey. Can I just turn it down just a tiny bit? We'll just get the sound right. It's just a little bit echoey. Now, first of all, we've got apologies from Renata Blair. We hope he's getting better. We've got can't hear. Oh, we'll turn it up again. We've got Tony Kake as the alternative. Kia ora, Tony, welcome. And James, kia ora, James. We've got apologies from lateness for Councillor Cooper. And any other apologies? Nope, I'll move those. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We've got declarations of interest. Councillor Fletcher has declared interest in item 10 as she's a trustee. Thank you, Councillor. And we'll just note that when it comes to that item on Karaka. Confirmation of minutes. I'm happy to move the 11th of June. Second, Councillor Desley. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And there are no petitions. Now, we've got lots of public input, but before we go to public input, and I'll talk us through how today is going to work, because it's going to be a very long day, members, so hang on to your hats. But I want to start the meeting off on a really positive note, and I want to acknowledge our wonderful, wonderful regional parks team. We've just won, and we've just found out that Shakespeare Regional Park has been recognised as one of the best parks in the world. It's just won a silver award in the 2019 International Large Urban Parks Awards, and they will be awarded the silver medal in Kazan in Russia in September, and that's a huge thing. So I just would like us to give our staff a round of applause for doing that. And as I say, particular mention to Mark Bowater, our Head of Parks Services, the wonderful Rachel Keller, who you all know so well as our Manager of Regional Parks, Scott De Silva, our Principal Ranger, and Bruce Harrison, who's here. And I just wonder if you guys are here, can you just stand up so that we can, yay, and come forward so we can... We all know how important our regional parks are, and we know how much they're loved and valued by our community. We know that these are the green lungs and the open spaces of a fast-growing city that's under a lot of pressure for elbow room. And I just want to thank you and your teams for this amazing piece of work. And did you want to say a very quick word, one of you, two of you? Rachel.
Well, thank you for that. I think the key thing here for us around the success of this park is the partnership that we have with others. And, you know, I'd like to acknowledge the work of many across council that contribute to the programs we run in this amazing regional park, but also the efforts that we have from our partners. So we've got our agency partners, Watercare. We work very closely with the New Zealand Defence Service, who have land inside the Finke Sanctuary. We've got a very special and important relationship with Mana Whenua, and there's an amazing contribution that goes into this park on a daily basis from a huge number of volunteers that operate alongside our rangers and underneath the Shakespeare Open Sanctuary Society. So I just really want to acknowledge that wide partnership and the contribution of many.
Lovely, and thank you again. Another round of applause for these awesome people. Thank you. We're really proud of the work you do. It's extraordinary. So just a quick little run through before we go on to public input. So you'll be aware that today's agenda is a very long agenda. We've pretty much got our local boards speaking at the start of every item. So I am going to be very tough on time. I will make us stick to 5 minutes, and I make no apologies for that, because even though everyone gets grumpy when they're told that that's quite long enough to speak, everyone also gets grumpy when the meeting goes on too long. So we just need to balance those 2 degrees of grumpiness. And I know in speaking to the local board members that I've spoken to, you know how important that is, and I really would like to thank you in advance for that. And colleagues, if we can work together collaboratively to work the meeting through. I do need to now check that I'll have a quorum until 6 o'clock tonight. That's the projected finish time of this meeting. So can people please put their hands up who can be here until 6? 6. Have we got a quorum? We've got a quorum. That's wonderful. Thank you. We will try and finish before 6, but I've done a quick and ready back of the envelope calculation, and it will take us through to 6. We'll aim to stop for a break between 1 and 1:30, but members, you are welcome to, get up and go and grab a coffee. Please do. You'll need it. We've got several requests in open forum for our members of the public to speak, and we're going to work through those shortly. But I've checked in with most local board chairs and members, and I'm going to invite you to speak at the start of your item, because it feels to me that it makes much more sense for us to hear from you, and then go into the item that's relevant to you, and that way, we're having that discussion feeling a little bit more joined up. So and I'll just confirm with Suad, because it has been a bit of a moving feast on the public input front. So we've got Jeff Stack to talk on Takapuna, Ruth Jackson and Ian Ray, and Terrence Harper from the Business Association. So that will be the group starting our public input, and then we've got 2 speakers on Chamberlain Park on public input. Now, we've had a couple of people who might have dropped between the cracks. I know Golf New Zealand were a bit upset that they couldn't speak. I've been in Wellington at the local government conference, and I didn't know they had asked to speak. So apologies to Golf New Zealand, but I think otherwise we've pretty much everyone who has asked to speak has been accepted, so we do have a large list. So we'll crack on and crack into it, and I'd like to invite Jeff Stack to. And I do apologise, I've had the flu, so sorry, hang on, major apologies. Find your field of dreams on time. We're starting with John Walker's and Kia ora. So John, find your field of dreams, and we've got Rick to start us off. Sorry, Rick, so focused on public input, so it's 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors, for this opportunity.
You'll just need, sorry, being the first up is always hard, you just need to press the button to make the microphone work. Awesome.
Kia ora everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair and councillors, for this opportunity to continue in the vein, Councillor Hulse, of positiveness. As you know, we've been going 11 years now, and Auckland Council have been an outstanding contributor and supporter of what we're doing, particularly in the south, and now with our growth throughout Auckland. 65,000 young people are engaged in 8 programs that we are running, and I would like you now, as they say, every picture tells 1,000 words, so if we could have that video now, please.
Yes, I was lucky as a kid. I had a dream. I wanted to go to the Olympic Games and win a gold medal like anyone else. So I had to make it come true. And it all started for me here at Maria. Got it as high. I ran as a midget, which is a little guy. And that was where it all started.
When I first started coaching John, I could see that he was okay, he was strong and he's fast and that sort of thing. But he, at that particular stage, he wasn't the the fastest or the biggest in his actual age group in New Zealand. And there were probably, 4 or 5 other people who were just as good, or if not just a bit faster. But when he came to see me, he was determined to get the very best out of himself, and he was a fantastic guy to train.
Goes home, as the great New Zealanders have done in the past. In second place, Benjamin, and third was Cochran. Third is Wellman, fourth Cochran, and 5 Hammond.
My father had a vision to get kids off the street, and that was the catalyst for Find Your Field of Dreams Foundation.
Yes, the charity is about giving kids an opportunity where they wouldn't have the same opportunity.
Now, and we recently celebrated our 1 millionth swimming lesson, which was an amazing achievement. Every year we put over $1 million back into the community, and we're involved with over 100 schools through the Auckland region.
We need your support to help give kids like me the opportunity to find their field of dream.
So there's a very short clip about our core business. As I was saying, 65,000 young people now engaged in our programs, and with the very, very generous support of Auckland Council, you can see the return on your investment. Every year we're able to extract from the community $1 million, which we reinvest back into the community, and we don't receive money from central government, we don't receive money from any other source, Sport NZ or such, but actually literally we do go out and source that every year. Very quickly, so your return on investment with us is $5 for every dollar that's invested, and we've got a number of programs this year that have that are being introduced, I should say. Our secondary schools water safety initiative right across Auckland East, including Auckland South, a YMCA camp that we're running with intermediates, and that's an annual event. We've just started up an academy with our Momentum Hub. We work very closely with Al Medina, the Muslim school. We put on a massive $20,000 package for them after the atrocities of March the 15th. We've just started up this week our Swim for Gold, which is taking up to 100 children now swimming, and they're being taken all the way through. Our work, and I personally work a lot in Spring Hill Prison, one-to-one with prisoners, and we've also got a program there with our Pacific Focus Unit. So thank you for the opportunity. I haven't come with my hand out, I've come with my hand up to say thank you very much indeed for your continued support of John Walker Find Your Field of Dreams.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much, Rick. Really appreciate that. We've probably got time for one question. Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Chair. Rick, good morning, and thank you very much for the great work that you're doing. I guess just to clarify, can you just give some reflection as to, one, the skinny nature of your back office, and two, the demographic of the constituency of children that you are focusing on?
Certainly. Yes, we're very thin in our back office. There's myself as General Manager, and we have an Executive Officer 32 hours a week, and we also have, we contract Gary Troop as our Events and Marketing Manager. So our monies that we bring in, we can hand on heart, nothing goes into back offices, it all goes directly into our programs. We're very proud of that. Our demographics are predominantly Auckland South, Auckland East, and we have also a program in Auckland West where we're wanting to spread through. But it was initially set up and through the Manukau boundaries, but now with the super city, we're able to spread our wings.
Thank you, Councillor. Good question and great answer. Would you like to move that recommendation, Councillor Newman? And Councillor Fletcher will second that. And of course, special acknowledgement to our wonderful Sir John. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you
very
so much, Rick.
Yes, thanks very much for the opportunity.
And sorry about
It's all good.
putting someone in front of you at the start. Thank you. So we'll move on to our first presentation, and Mr. Stack. Right, now it's the right time. Sorry about that.
It's okay, it's the first time for me, so. So I have a colleague here that Olivia Bateman, who might take some of my minutes if it's possible.
Sure. So warm welcome. The next 5 minutes are all yours.
Thank you very much. I'm Jeff Stack, and our family have been residents of Takapuna for nearly 100 years. I am deeply disturbed about Panuku's proposal for the Anzac Street car park. In my mind, there has been a huge deception with the process and information that Panuku has presented. I want to remind the Auckland City Council and its elected members of their obligations according to the Council's own Code of Conduct. It requires members to display honesty and integrity, public interest, impartiality, accountability, openness, respect, and also a local authority should ensure the role of a democratic government for this community and the expected conduct of elected members is clear and understood. Last August, I attended a meeting of approximately 400 people, including the Mayor, our two local councils, and I understand you were there, Madam Chair.
It was.
A vote was taken for a rejection of Panuku's plans. Approximately 8 votes supported Panuku. Then Mr. Goff then said words to this effect that Panuku's offer was rejected. He would remove the future investment of Takapuna. Plans presented by Panuku have shown inaccuracies, misrepresentations and exclusions of measurements, heights of future buildings are unknown, buildings and spaces shown were not to scale, no written dimensions have been specified on plans that I have seen, proportions of shading and sunlight appear to be inaccurate. All this has resulted in confusion and mistrust of Panuku and the Auckland City Council by the Takapuna community. I have spoken to many people who have a vested interest in the commercial area. I only found 2 businesses in support of the proposed development. Most show concern for the number of empty premises, approximately 35, and many do not intend to renew their leases. This committee will make the decision today for the development on my behalf. My concern that this is a financial and not an environmental decision. I predict that this will become Takapuna's environmental disaster, with approximately 5,900 square metres covered in high-rise development zoned up to 11 stories and gone forever. The proposal goes against the principles expressed in the Auckland City Council document, the 1st of May, the health benefits of green spaces. The New Zealand government is investing $100 million to address the mental health and well-being of our population. This council has set aside $1.4 billion for acquiring and developing public open spaces and parks. Any proposal needs to be fit for purpose, effective use of public open space for the benefit, mental health and well-being of the whole community. It is essential for now and into the future. Takapuna's CBD population is set to grow by 10,000. Open green spaces and public areas are imperative to the mental health and well-being of such a high-density population. I have included an article, it was supposed to be, I don't know how to hand it out. I propose that this committee defers their decision until the Development Devonport Takapuna Board has completed a thorough and accurate critique of Richard Reeves' planning proposal. There shall be fully informed public consultation in order to ensure that the Takapuna community is directly involved in the final democratic outcome. As part of my speech, I give the remaining time of my voice to the next generation, Olivia Maidment.
Thank you. Can I just ask members of the public, I know you're enthusiastic, but this is actually a council meeting, it's not a public meeting, and clapping just eats up valuable speaking time for our people. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Olivia Maidment and I'm here to speak on the plan for development of 40 Anzac Street in Takapuna. I've called Takapuna home for the last 24 years, my whole life, and I really hope that today you consider our town centre in that light, as our home and the centre of our community. Central Takapuna is without a doubt in desperate need of updating and development to become future-proofed in a more livable, enjoyable and accessible space. With the pressures that come from population growth and an environmental crisis, it is essential that the correct considerations are made to ensure that this irreplaceable public land can be transformed into as meaningful and useful space as possible for the community to benefit current and future generations. It is with this firmly in mind that I recognise that the town square in Panuku's latest proposal, or whatever the name is for that kind of bizarre polygon, is absolutely not an appropriate option for development of the current car park space. It should be a space that people move to, not through. We want a destination where there can be markets and other social events, a space that can civilly host an Anzac commemoration service or a university graduation parade. That surely should not be too much to ask for. Therefore, there is clear justification for going back to the local board and the community to consider the benefits provided in the plans commissioned by the board and produced by urban design specialist Richard Reeves and his associates. We need to ensure we get this right before a decision is made that will set in stone how our town centre will look and function for the next 100 years. There appears to be strong evidence to suggest that the consultation process and publicity around it was carried out within a carefully planned, systematic and orchestrated campaign to manipulate and influence public opinion in order to achieve the council's predetermined outcome. Under the Auditor General's guidelines for local government public consultation, it could possibly be described as unfair, unreasonable, below minimum standard and a sham. In reference to an Auckland Council advertisement I saw thinly veiled as journalism in the spin-off yesterday, we are not people with change rage. We are passionate residents who see a proposal for development in the heart of our town centre that we know will not meet the community's functional requirements. We're not peeved about change, we are peeved about something we see that is just clearly a very bad idea being railroaded through our home. We know that its design and consultation was not created with our needs and values and sense of community in mind. Revenue targets and political allegiances meant that creating a meaningful public space for us came far too far down the priority list. And that is just not good enough.
Wrap up now, thank you.
I request the committee to please support my request for the local Devonport Takapuna Board and Panuku to work together for an outcome in which 40 Anzac Street really will be the heart and soul of our city. Thank you.
Perfect timing, thank you very much. Now, what we'll do is, again, we've probably got time for a question, if there is. Councillor Walker.
So, a fairly quick question. I've seen and read the Richard Reeves report, and I assume both of you have as well. And no doubt you're also familiar with the proposals for on the part of Panuku. In your opinion, are there clear differences between the Richard Reeves report and the Panuku proposal?
Yes.
So the Panuku proposal doesn't function as an appropriate space for holding events. It wouldn't fit a Anzac commemoration the size of the one that Devonport usually has. It's a series of corridors. It doesn't make sense that the space wouldn't be extended off Potters Park to create as open and welcoming a space as possible. And also in terms of sunlight and shading, the Richard Reeves proposal makes far more sense.
And one particular aspect of the Richard Reeves report is the proposal to have the square directly next to Potters Park. So can you comment on that?
Councillor, I know we are going to stick very closely to time. We're going to hear from the Takapuna Devonport local board, and that's, I'm sure, the chance for us to unpack a little bit.
Sure,
on
I was
the
just
Richard
interested
Reid.
in a community perspective,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yep, no, we can have a quick answer to that, but I don't want us to go into too much detail on that yet.
I definitely think that building on the beautiful open space, the green space that Takapuna already has, would make far more sense to extend that. And having the open space leading off on 40 Anzac Street, leading off Potters Park, definitely makes more sense to me rather than a separate corridor further down the site.
And also not a big wind tunnel between the buildings, because it'll be cold, damp, covered in shade. Who's going to go to a town square? You go to a town square to sit in the sun, for goodness sake.
Okay, thank you. Points well made. Would someone like to move the thanks? Thank you, Councillor Walker and Councillor Watson. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Our next public input on this issue is Ruth Jackson together with Air Ray.
On behalf of Heart of Takapuna Incorporated, thank you for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Ian Ray. With me are co-founding members of our society, Ruth Jackson and Trish Deans. Heart of Takapuna has a volunteer base of over 1,000 registered supporters and has attended the Sunday market at 40 Anzac Street, Takapuna for over 3 years. It has tabled a petition from 8,500 people on the issue of disposing land at 40 Anzac Street and made a submission on Panuku's 3 options. We acknowledge that the Auckland Council Planning Committee's resolution from 6 March 2018 and the inclusion of conditions B and E proposed by Mayor Goff that the change in land use, B, includes a town square, and E, agree that the town square created will follow Auckland Council's Open Space Provision Policy 2016 guidelines for civic space. On Saturday, 6 July 2019, a public meeting of around 100 residents resolved to wholeheartedly support the concept plan by Richard Reid and Associates, as endorsed by the Devonport Takapuna Local Board, unanimously calls on Auckland Council to refer the Panuku plan back to the Devonport Takapuna Local Board. The value of Mr. Reid's report is that it has taken direction from the council resolution referred to above. This led our societies thinking on what might be possible for Takapuna and what planning provisions already exist to create a livable place within a vibrant and prosperous metropolitan centre. Through the 3 years process, we have been frustrated by Panuku's inability to engage constructively. We came to realise that we would need expert advice of our own. Last month, we approached an independent urban design expert to comment on the potential public space outcomes for 40 Anzac Street. This was timely, given the Panuku and Isthmus criticism of Mr. Reid's report. As a consequence, we would like to table Jan McCready's assessment of the Panuku Isthmus proposal and RRA's recommendation for a town square that appends this statement. An extract from her executive summary is as follows. Quoting Jan McCready. My conclusion is that the RRA proposal provides a highly accessible town square and public realm with positive development opportunities that will enhance Takapuna. It is integrated into the Takapuna town plan in a way that enables it to become a focus and memorable place for the community over time. The Isthmus Panuku proposal provides 3 irregular-shaped movement corridors instead of providing a town square. The proposal acts as a thoroughfare which will attract business, however, that is and will be its only role. The demarcation of the spaces by irregular-shaped buildings appears to be a forced solution that does not serve or enhance the civic spaces or potential building footprints. These will be difficult to build, inefficient, and have limited ability to suit the users nominated. There is no contiguous space that can accommodate the market. You will find Ms. McCready's credentials at the end of her assessment. Heart of Takapuna is encouraged by Ms. McCready's assessment and requests that Panuku, the ward councillors and the Devonport Takapuna Local Board work together to deliver a beautiful town square for our metropolitan centre in accordance with the Open Space Provision Policy, that it will be a high quality space that provides for the needs of the future community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, can I just check, Ruth, did you wish to? add to this?
Ian can take questions.
Okay, right, so any questions?
We all can, depending what they are.
Okay, sorry, what was that?
We can field questions depending
Okay,
what they are.
perfect. Questions? Councillor Sayers.
Didn't see any other hands going up, so I would like to ask a question relating back to our report and just what you've presented. In the report, it's saying that the alternative options don't meet some recommended proposed design principles. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that. It talks about activated edges, flexibility, those type of things. So my question is, in terms of your request of us to have the two parties work together, is it to overcome those issues that are outlined in the report specifically, or other things?
The resolution that was passed on March 6 in 2018 by the Council directed the three parties to work together to achieve the provisions of the open space policy. And the evidence which we've just tabled from the independent expert states quite clearly that those provisions have not yet been met. Does that answer the question, Councillor?
It's helpful, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
So I've just had a quick look at this report by Jan McCready. It's the first time I've seen it, and there are two critical elements that I pick up. One is around the town square and the comment that the Richard Reid proposal has got a real town square, but the other proposal, or the other part, is that from a commercial perspective, the Richard Reid proposal has effectively more viable building floor plates. And I note that the Richard Reid proposal is a compromise, if you like, so it's both the town square and buildings, but it's a reconfiguration on the buildings. I'd invite your comment around the commercial aspect of the square, and if you like, the melding of a square and development.
One of the key things is that the Panuku plan is very awkwardly shaped. The various iterations have shown collections of buildings, some of which are quite small. One of the things about the Richard Reid plan is that it effectively moves some of that off the 40 Anzac footprint and back next door into Hurstmere Roadland, also owned by council, so that you effectively get the same sort of commercial yield from development sites, but you create a larger space within 40 Anzac Street, which is what the council had guaranteed, that there would be 30 to 40,000 square metres of civic open space on 40 Anzac Street, not at some other location, and it enables that to happen. So by moving some of the development onto the empty site and related shops next door owned by council, they would still get about the same commercially developable footprint without that reducing the size of the civic space on 40 Anzac that council guaranteed.
I think Jan McCready's evidence, which we've just tabled, also outlines that there is far more retail frontage, both on Hurstmere and on Anzac, that the Richard Reid proposal allows for.
And what follows then, just for clarity, what you're looking for is collaboration on the part of Panuku, the local board, putting these proposals on the table so that we could have a better solution and one that meets a huge number of people within the community.
And we would like a prosperous metropolitan centre, which means businesses and cafes that work, that people want to go to.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Right, I think that's it for questions. Obviously, a lot more discussion to have. I'm happy to move that we acknowledge our three speakers, Ruth and Ian and
Trish Deans.
Yep, we've got Trish down. Councillor Walker will second that. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for being succinct.
Thank you, Chair.
Our next presentation or public input is from Terrence Harper from the Takapuna Beach Business Association. Welcome, gentlemen.
Kia ora, and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Terrence Harper. I am the Chief Executive of the Takapuna Beach Business Association. And this is Aidan Bennett, a prominent member of the community, and we're just going to share this 5-minute speaking slot. I'm here to confirm the continued support of the Takapuna Beach Business Association for the current process and progress made to date with this development. We support a rigorous process to ensure the best possible design solution. This development is vital to ensuring Takapuna grows into the metropolitan centre it has been designated for the benefit of the community and its businesses. Today, I'd just like to reiterate a few facts about the public views for you today. The TBBA surveyed its members in December 2017, which showed the overwhelming majority wanted this development to happen. The public were consulted in August 2018. Of the 5,385 public submissions, which I believe is a record for Auckland Council for one project, 55% were in favour of the development versus 41% against. Of those wanting the development, 85% chose option 1, a town square between Hurstmere Road and Lake Road. In August 2018, the TBBA surveyed employees in Takapuna, showing 83% wanted the development to continue. 78% of those wanted the town square between Hurstmere Road and Lake Road. In August 2018, Colmar Brunton conducted an independent survey of 560 interviews. This showed that 69% wanted this development to go ahead. Option 1, a town square between Hurstmere Road and Lake Road, was the preferred option, receiving 40% of the total votes. A town square between Hurstmere Road and Lake Road or Shore City Shopping Centre is the favoured layout by this community. The TBBA wants to ensure this development continues at a reasonable pace and does not get further delayed. The other significant project in Takapuna, the upgrade of our main high street, Hurstmere Road, has seen significant delays, over 12 months so far. This is due to infighting in council and objection from some members of the local board on minor design elements against expert advice. This has caused major costs and issues for the businesses along the street. We still do not have a confirmed start date or timeline for the construction. We cannot allow the Anzac Street car park development to go down the same path. We look forward to continuing to talk about this development and working with Auckland Council to maximise the benefits for our economy and the community. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess
Yep, just pop the...
Yeah, I guess I'm here really, I think I represent what I would call the silent majority. As Terrence has said, this process has been a long one. It's been through lots of different council discussions, community discussions, and then has been put out to the community to vote. The community said they wanted the proposal that has been put forward, and obviously there's some people within the community who don't accept that. I think it's time as a community that we moved on, put our faith in the elected representatives who are doing the job, put our faith in the experts from organisations like Panuku. I think that the loud minority, it's very easy for them to have a go at the people who have put these things in place. But to me, those people are the experts. Now, they obviously don't get everything 100% right, but what they do is they have all the facts at their disposal. The people who, you know, and fair to them, they obviously have good intentions, but most of the people that will present to the negative today come from certain agendas, and those agendas shouldn't stop, you know, what I term the silent majority. Those are the people that won't come along here today and debate, but those are the people that sit at home and want to use amenities like we're talking about creating. I've lived in Takapuna for a decade. I've been in business on the shore for 30 years. I have seen Takapuna struggle, and I am very keen to see Takapuna thrive. If every time we get development opportunities that go hand in hand with the way that council are planning things, and let's face it, the idea of having a big council was to actually plan our city properly, and this whole thing is part of planning our city properly. If we let special interest groups take over the planning of our city and the places where we live, play and work, then we're going to end up with a mismatch again, you know. And so we need to think about this as a council. The public have said yes to this proposal, and that's what should happen.
Thank you very much. Now we've got 2 questions. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm interested in what you're putting forward to us. We had a similarly controversial matter in Three Kings, and we were most fortunate to have the input from Richard Reed. In discounting the opposition that you're hearing on this, you imply that we should stick to the experts. And in the case of Three Kings, I found Richard Reed's proposals enormously helpful in shaping how I should move forward. Have you had the opportunity to meet with Richard or to consider his plans?
I have asked for a meeting with Richard, but I was told no. I'd like to say also that Richard Reed's goes more for option 2, which only received 8% of the vote from the public. The Panuku development is going for option 1 in its general layout, which the majority of the public would like.
Madam Chair, I think it would be very helpful if a meeting could be arranged between Richard Reed, because I certainly found him to be an expert in terms of pulling communities together.
Okay, right. 3 quick questions. I've got Councillor Walker, Cloak, Watson, and then we'll move on. Councillor Walker, 1 question.
Sure. So the Richard Reed report is public. It was presented to the Devonport Takapuna meeting on the 18th of June, I think. So has your board had a look at it? Have you considered it? And in particular, I'm referring to the business ramifications and the comments that the other expert, apparently, Jan McCready, is making, that it's better from a business perspective.
The Panuku design, we feel, connects the main retail areas of Takapuna better. It's connecting Hurstmere Road and Shore City. Creates public room. It also connects to the major transport hubs, bus station and new car park at the Gasometer site. Connects the business district better with the Takapuna beach. Maximises the number of active edges. Maximises sun through the space, allowing outdoor retail activity. Creates a public space which can be tailored to suit different events or public use as required. And it allows for natural placemaking within the community and in the space for organised events, amongst a number of other advantages.
So I understand that, but I just wonder, I mean, you're quoting from the Panuku study. Have you had a close look at the Richard Reed study, particularly around sun and shading and proximity to Potters Park and so on?
We have had a look at that design, and we have asked for a meeting with them to further explain it, to talk it through with the board, but we haven't had that opportunity yet.
But you'd welcome that opportunity?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I think the question's been answered well. The ask was given, the answer was no, attempts will be made. Councillor Cloak.
Terrence, do the businesses that are part of the Takapuna Business Association think that Takapunas are thriving in metropolitan town centre?
We would like it to be more thriving. Takapuna needs investment and it needs upgrade. It needs to keep up with its competitors. It is looking quite degraded in parts, and it needs this investment to happen, or we are going to be left behind. Retail is tough, and our retailers are finding it very tough. So we need to continue to make that streetscape and that public area as best as it can be.
Very importantly too, we need to make sure that the planning goes hand in hand with all the other planning. You know, I'm not sure where Richard Reed fits into the picture, but maybe from the start of a process like this, he should be engaged by Panuku right at the start. You know, it seems to me that maybe he's been used by people who want an alternative to start the process again, and that is just wasting ratepayers' dollars. And for our businesses in and around Takapuna, that's going to be wasting time as well. You know, the time is important. You know, we need this development to happen quickly for the businesses of Takapuna. If the people who are trying to stop this stop it now, then we're back to square one, and I guess it puts it back a year or two. And it's ridiculous, because what's that going to cost me as a ratepayer? What's that going to cost the businesses in terms of the delay?
Okay, thank you. And final question from Councillor Watson.
Thank you. My question is a quick one. You talked about the people trying to stop it, but you also mentioned about putting faith in the elected representatives to make a decision. Does that include your local board that represents your community? Should we put faith in their view?
Well, whose job was it to make the ultimate decision? What is the process?
No, I'm asking...
Yeah, but I understand the process is for council to make that decision. So council have made that decision. I watched a 2 or 3 hour council meeting where it was debated. My understanding was that 2/3 of the councillors, maybe more, voted in favour of it. But now we've got people trying to overturn that. And that might be a democratic process, but to me, we just need the decision to be made and move on with it. There'll be people that don't like it. There'll be people that don't like everything, all decisions that are made. But are we going to turn things over every time we make a decision?
No, I guess my question was, should we listen to your elected representatives?
Yep.
Hang
on, gentlemen. We're getting into a little bit of a debate between the two of you. In the interest of time, I think Councillor Watson's question was a good one. Do we listen to elected representatives? The point that I understand Mr Bennett was making is listen to the layer to who have the governance decision for that particular issue. Local board have a role in this. Listen to the local board for their part of the decision. Governing body have the decision on the open space component. And you're saying that we need to get on and
yes,
make the
and I also think that
sorry, we can't open it up again. We do just need to keep this rolling. But I think the question was answered, Councillor Watson. Okay, I am happy to move that we thank Mr Bennett and Mr Harper for the presentation. Seconded, Councillor Cooper. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And just to let people know who are here for this item, we've got several items still to get through. We do have the opportunity to move an order of business to move Takapuna up. I'll just let the elected members cogitate on that while we take the public input on Chamberlain Park. So our next public input is from Wendy Gray and Jeff Senecal, sorry, I mispronounced your name, from Save Chamberlain Park. So I'd like to invite you both up.
We're actually separate here, we're not together.
Oh, so, okay, good to have you.
But we're happy to have Wendy at our table. Will you ever come up here with us too, please?
Okay, well, we'll do 5 minutes for you, Jeff, and then 5 minutes for Wendy.
That'd be fantastic, thank you very much.
Okay, and I just ask you to...
Yeah, I'll just hand out some photographs here.
Sorry, can I just, would Councillor Watson, if you could just turn your microphone off, and then we can hear. Right, they should be operating. Thank you very much.
I'll just hand out some photographs here so we know what we're talking about, which is from Stanley Palmer, who took them, renowned Auckland artist. He's doing some watercolours on Chamberlain Park, and this is where the actual. This is where the actual sports fields are proposed to go. So it's
it gives you a sense it's not a desolate area, it's actually quite a beautiful area. Okay. Am I good to start? Timer on?
Timer on.
Good. The Council should not approve the expenditure of $1 million of ratepayer funds to support the $29.7 million project to redevelop what is the busiest golf course in Auckland. I hope alarm bells are ringing with the new price tag for this indicative business plan that is up 35% on the previous one for the exact same master plan. Just to remind you, Chamberlain Park has been an 18-hole public golf course for 80 years. Today it continues to be a golf course that supports the health and well-being of largely the working classes. Also, around 30% of its users are Maori and Polynesian. And it is not just about golf. Chamberlain Park is a unique inner-city landform that has escaped development till now and provides an exquisite insight into how things looked well before humans first set foot in this land. For our 19,000 plus and growing petition supporters, such arguments are enough, but not for the local board that wants to concentrate this huge think big-like expenditure on a part of its ward that has an abundance of green space, such as Fowles Park and the Unitec campus. Even more when you take account of the neighbouring Western Springs Park. In fact, by our count, there are 69 parks and reserves within 2 kilometres of Chamberlain Park. We have submitted more detailed arguments to you, which I hope you'll have read before making your decision. It is our view that the indicative business case presented to you here today is flawed in that it contains errors and lacks balance and is therefore potentially unlawful. The flaws have been pointed out to the local board and the council staff, but they still see fit to place them in front of you here today. You should know the local board voted 5-3 along political lines to approve this project and also defeat a motion to discuss the report with us. I note 2 of those who voted in favour are not standing for the local board in this upcoming election. I also note that you have received information from Graham East questioning the $29.7 million figure and pouring scorn on council staff. Mr East voted in favour of the indicative business plan. If his convictions were so strong, and we are talking about a significant investment of ratepayer funds here, then how could he allow this erroneous plan to be put before you here today? Well, he may question the $29.7 million figure because even with an aggressive 34-year payback period, the council staff can only find $26 million of benefit. The only thing to conclude here is that this money could be better spent. So what are some of the flaws? The plan uses misleading information to imply demand for golf is shrinking in Albert Eden area, but no one from council has surveyed the users of the course. We have. It also conveniently ignores the numbers are up 20% at Chamberlain Park in the 2019 year to March. Then the plan says that the ethnic mix in Albert Eden is changing, with New Zealand Europeans falling as a percentage and Asian numbers increasing. But it does not take the dots to join the dots to suggest that the Asian people are more likely to be golfers than rugby players. The plan talks about the changing dynamics of golf and support of 9 holes, but its master plan is totally offside with the 2 main golfing bodies, Auckland Golf and New Zealand Golf, who would have loved to have been here, by the way, but were unable to because they weren't permitted their speaking rights. And, you know, I note that over 100,000 people play golf in Auckland, and golf is the #1 participation sport in the city. Ever since we started challenging this in 2015, we have heard that there is a critical shortage of sports fields in the Albert Eden area and a lack of open space. Council language around sports fields has since changed to one of making our fields usable all year round. However, the council staff and the local board still keep on talking about the lack of sports fields and justifying the expenditure of now $16 million on, yes, only 2 sports fields. Just imagine how many existing sports fields could be weatherproofed for that price. It is not only unfair on golf, it is unfair on those kids and teams who get rained off week after week. The business plan says the master plan offers a mixture of sport and recreation opportunities, allowing a wider and more diverse section of the population to utilise public open space.
The fact is there is more than sufficient sport and recreation opportunities in the vicinity of Chamberlain Park. Change in the offer at Chamberlain Park would merely transfer some sport and recreation activities from close-by parks such as Western Springs Felds Park and Unitec Campus to Chamberlain Park, resulting in no net increase in utilisation of open space. I note that Unitec is being developed into a residential area with generous open space amounting to several neighbourhood parks and a suburb park. The redevelopment options chosen provides poor community outcomes. It just makes no sense, for example, spending money on carving up part of the park to put a neighbourhood park adjacent to an existing one. This does not increase access to neighbourhood parks by any measure. In conclusion, this is a hugely important issue for both, I'm just about finished, for both in terms of the future of this well-used recreational asset and the costs associated with its redevelopment. At the moment, you are being asked to make a decision on the flawed indicative business plan. So I put it to you again, as we said in our submission, council decision making is required to take into account all matters that should be taken into account, to not take into account matters that should not be taken into account, to be fair and to be reasonable.
Thank you, Jeff. And just to clarify, in case people are wondering, Golf New Zealand asked later yesterday, apparently, to speak, and unfortunately, as you can see, our speaking slots were chocker, so they were out of time legally.
Yeah,
so I just needed to clarify.
But I think New Zealand Golf is a stakeholder here, a key stakeholder. They've sent hopefully to everybody a letter that you've seen. And they might not monitor everything that goes on here. So your meeting agenda just came out on a Friday, so it's very difficult for everybody to know what's exactly going on. But that's not trying to provide an excuse for them, but context.
Okay, so we've probably got time for a question before we go to Wendy. Councillor Walker.
Sure. So to speed things up, I'd just emphasise that I've read the entire commentary that you've made around the council report.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear to me that the inaccuracies in the council report are substantial, and that your report, if I call it that, is based on some pretty solid facts. So my question is, we've got before us a recommendation to essentially agree with the information in the report. What's your view on that?
Well,
how would that place us?
I don't see how council can agree to a report that has, in our view, has lots of mistakes in it. It's just it just doesn't make any sense. And we've tried to point that out. I mean, I know it's a lot of information to absorb for everybody and to make a decision in such a tight time frame for a $30 million expenditure on an 80-year-old asset. What's the rush? Let's sort of take a pause here and rethink. And it's not like the plan itself has been tested against the status quo, or even we've had our own vision that we've tabled that we feel that has been ignored. We have a vision for the park that could do everything that the master plan does, apart from the two sports fields. Probably it needn't cost anything, but it could cost around, I don't know, $6 million if you want to change sort of implement sheds around and the like. We are for the redevelopment or the fixing up of Meola Creek. We think that would be a wonderful thing to happen. But, there are ways of putting, bikeways around. There's ways of putting, including the community in, getting schools involved in an eco centre, sort of, 32 hectares of inner city land to do predator trapping, to do lots of interesting things around the, ecology, planting of native trees. And just imagine, that's 32 hectares and there's lots of schools in the vicinity. They all could come and be involved in that process. Instead, what's been proposed is artificial sports fields, $16 million, halving the course, changing from active recreation to passive recreation. So it's not, improving our well-being. It's actually detracting from our well-being. And then the neighbourhood, putting two neighbourhood parks next to each other. I mean, I mean, you know, what sense does that make? Guys, of that?
Thanks, Chief. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you for your presentation. It's an unusual situation in that this is a local board park,
Yes.
and yet what you're telling us is people use it from across the region. Consistently, we have been told, as this issue has been debated, that Golfing New Zealand has supported the proposal. I've got to the point that I'm completely confused. I'm sorry they're not here today. Can you make it quite clear, I know that you've spoken to them, what the position of Golfing New Zealand is?
Yeah. Well, Golfing New Zealand do not support the master plan. Golfing New Zealand, you know, want to increase the investment into the Chamberlain Park and improve it. They see Chamberlain Park as being an important asset in the golfing suite. And it is. It's a place where, you know, low-income people, working classes, it's a place where, you know, people go to play golf. If anyone goes there on a weekend and sees, you know, it's very busy, and even during the week it's very busy. New Zealand Golf gets that. It's a place where it's a feeder for people who might sort of not have the time to play golf, sort of play once or twice a year, and then go and join a club later. So New Zealand Golf sees the importance of Chamberlain Park, and you know, I think they in good faith work with the local board, and they have tried to sort of be constructive, but they felt, I think, that they were misled to the point where we're at right now, where the park has been, you know, the master plan has been adopted, and they strongly disagree with that, and as such would, you know, don't want to see that happen.
And I just urge councillors, they've actually written to us on that.
So thank you.
And thanks, councillor. Do you have another quick question?
Yeah, just quick question. Not everybody's golfers.
Yes.
This is a very large piece of land.
Yes.
What's in it for everybody else?
Well, Wendy will probably be better to speak to that, but I do say that our vision for the park, you know, we're not sort of wanting to sort of close it down and say everybody's got to keep out. We, you know, in our vision, you know, we would like to include the community, schools, as I said before. If you plant native trees and you know, organic fertilisers and create 32 hectares of land, of parkland, that it could be a wonderful space. It could be much, you know, it's already wonderful. It could be even better than what it is. And so it's not just about golfers. And our petition, which is nearly 20,000 now, you know, it's certainly not just golfers. Our people, Aucklanders, who care about the land, you know, and the space.
If I may just make an additional point, is that the course, of course, is not closed to the public. I understand, of course, that there is risk to walking on the course, but the public is not banned from the course. Hagley Park, for example, in Christchurch, is a course which is shared between the public and golfers. And our Safe Chamberlain Park proposal put in cycleways, walkways, and allow a similar sort of sharing to go on at Chamberlain Park.
An inner city regional park, perhaps?
No, we're just, hang on, councillors.
Absolutely.
Sorry, we're just keeping an eye on the time, so councillors, I hope we'll have a quorum till 7:30 tonight, because we're now running an hour behind. So I know people are passionate about this, but can we actually just manage the number of questions being asked? I'll go to Councillor Simpson, and then we need to hear from Wendy.
I'll ask for a quick question. Councillor Fletcher talked about New Zealand Golf, but of course if this will affect Auckland Golf. Yes. So your knowledge of Auckland Golf's
They have been opposed to the master plan since day one, and still are, and that is supported in the letter which was circulated by New Zealand Golf to councillors last night.
And Dorothy Wallace, who's the chair of Auckland Golf, is actually a regular player at Chamberlain Park. So, you know, they are very supportive.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Wendy, and then I know Councillor Newman was going to ask a question, so we'll take Wendy's presentation, and then Councillor Newman, you're most welcome to ask your question, and then we'll move on. Wendy.
Thank you, Councillor Hoss.
I'm here as chair of the
Well, just
society.
ask, sorry, if I just,
Do I
Chief,
need to
can you
turn
just
it off?
pop your, yeah, it just is a little bit hard for our people to hear at the back when there's other microphones on.
I'm here as chair of the Society for the Protection of Western Springs Forest. The Chamberlain Park report focuses on the business case, but I'm here to talk about the environment. The business case ignores the cost to Auckland of the loss of at least 1,000 mature trees and protected trees from this project. How many trees will be lost by this project? We just don't know. Destroying these trees results in loss of ecosystem services, air cleaning, oxygen production, stormwater sequestration, carbon sequestration, especially in relation to pollution caused by the motorway bordering Chamberlain Park. How will the loss of the cooling microclimate of these trees, which are providing Auckland, impact Auckland's macroclimate? I remind you, Council also plans to destroy the Western Springs forest, which will destroy a microclimate as well. Isn't it time that Council joined up the dots? There is no information about the actual environmental impact of this project. These trees have a value. Just because Auckland, unlike Australia, does not put a dollar value on the services its trees provide, the amenity they give local residents, which contribute to health and well-being, does not mean that they don't have a value. They do. It could be considerable. On Western Springs Pines alone, the assessment was conservatively estimated at $4 million. What is the value of the loss of trees in Chamberlain Park? Then there is carbon release, consequences of destroying 1,000 mature trees. No assessment has been done. What about the biodiversity? I don't believe any assessment has been done. Does Council ever consider where the biodiversity is to go when it destroys habitat? Chamberlain Park, along with Western Springs, Falls Park, and a number of reserves and parks nearby, including Meola Reef Reserve, are part of the important Green Corridor link for birds, migratory, endemic and exotic, travelling from Hauraki Gulf to the Waitakaris. This is an extension of the Northwest Wild Link, which Council recognises and supports. Does the proposal strongly align with Council's plans and strategic objectives? I don't think so. No mention is made of the strategy for Auckland's urban Ngāhere. I remind you that protected trees is part of your implementation framework actions. The strategy is supposed to provide an important tool to ensure we are all working towards the same common goal. Nowhere is it mentioned. What about Council's climate crisis declaration in June? Surely Council and local boards are reviewing and auditing all proposals and plans. We are being told almost daily that it is planting trees, preserving and replenishing our mature forests that will help solve the carbon and climate crises. The government's Environment Aotearoa 2019 Stocktake report informed us that our environment is in precarious state. Things are very bad, said Forest and Birds Kevin Haig. It is incumbent on this committee to give due weight to all these highly relevant and important issues in their decision-making. The citizens of Auckland do take Council's report and policy seriously, and we have created a world-class plan for Western Springs and Chamberlain Park, which we recommend you today. And I ask you to look at the pictures, and this is the Green Bridge proposal. Save Chamberlain Park's vision is to turn the park into a wildlife sanctuary and golf course. By joining Western Springs Lakeside Park with Chamberlain Park by a green bridge, Auckland Council would double the size of this biodiversity hotspot to approximately 60 hectares right in the centre of the city. Declaring the open space corridor or green corridor and restoring the link between Western Springs Lakeside Park and Chamberlain Park, plus extending the Western Springs SEA, or creating a whole new category to preserve these areas for wildlife in perpetuity, Council will immediately signal a change in focus from concrete intensification and undervaluing its urban tree ngāhere and biodiversity towards living together sustainably in balance and harmony with nature. This will, of course, require a different, more skilled approach to the management of these areas. We recommend that Auckland signs up to the People, Cities and Nature program at Waikato University, run by Professor Bruce Clarkson, whom we will be bringing to Auckland in the near future to speak. Cities like Wellington already sign up to this program, are experiencing big biodiversity dividends. I am talking here about tikanga, acting with the right intention in the correct way. I'll leave you with Rachel Carson's warning in Silent Spring. We stand now where two roads diverge. The risks of not taking the correct road for Auckland are too grave to contemplate.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Now I've got two councillors who wish to ask questions. So Councillor Newman, you're okay? All right, Councillor Walker.
So I've listened to all of your comments, Wendy. Quite obviously, we've got a landscape that's located on an old lava field, and I'm assuming that the contours reflect that and go back conceivably thousands of years, well, forever, essentially. So what will be the impact on creating these flat playing fields on that landscape?
Well, I actually think Chamberlain Park are better at actually answering that one, but they're going to flatten them out, so they're going to completely change it. And it is historical, and it is archaeological, and I'm not sure, but they might be able to tell you whether they've done any studies regarding this, but I don't think they have.
The answer to that is no, we haven't. We can tell you that the data which has been provided to the local board says that 66,000 cubic metres of fill would be needed to level the platform for the playing fields, and that fact, the levelling that platform is probably one of the most significant costs of this whole project. Now, I understand that there is some argument about what the quantum of the cost of that fill may be, but at that level of cost was included in the OLI application and is now in the current figure which is before the council or this committee. So that cost is very much part of the increased cost which is coming in. But what else would create? We've done no work on archaeological areas, so we can't answer that question, Councillor.
Related question, Madam Chair, to you, Wendy, is essentially what you want is you want this option, which effectively is an ecological, sustainable, low-carbon option, which we should be doing anyway, put on the table. That's correct?
Exactly. That's our recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. That's our recommendation.
That's clear. And final question to Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Wendy, for your presentation. I mean, you raise a lot of really important issues. Have these been put, and I'm open to others responding to it, have these matters been put to the CEO of Auckland Council?
I'm not aware they have. You're talking about the environmental ones?
I'm talking in general. I'm very aware that there's been 2 judicial reviews, and what you're talking about now is really serious for council. I'm just wanting to make sure from the highest level of council officer down, they are aware of what's at stake here.
I haven't spoken to anybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But we have, been at pains to point this out, and we, in meeting with Wendy recently, have furthered our thinking on this because, it's absent, as Wendy says, from all the materials that we've had. So hence sort of trying to sort of we've done some work on the trees that are going out and the impact, but Wendy is more skilled and able to sort of assess this from an environment point of view.
Okay. Questions been asked
Can
and
I just
answered.
add that
Very briefly, sorry, we've put a lot of time on this.
A letter to the CEO of Council dealing with a lot of the Save Chamberlain Park issues is attached to the documents which were sent to members of this committee.
Okay. And you've kept us well informed of all of your actions that have been taken. I'm happy to move that we thank the group for the presentation. Councillor Fletcher will second. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
for your
Councillor
time.
Hulse. I will just send in my submissions to your assistant.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So a slight change in focus now, and the last of the public input is from Harbour Sport and Active, and I just want to see who's here. So we've got Richard from Harbour Sport, Corey from Harbour Sport, and Jude from Active, I think. Awesome. Warm welcome. Thank you. And just to reiterate to our local board chairs that are here, we'll take this as public input, and then when we get to each item on each local board initiative, I'll invite the local board chair or rep to talk prior to the item. Okay, well, welcome. 5 minutes is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors, for the chance to chat. Who I represent, my name's Richard Cassuits. I work at Harbour Sport. I'm on the board of North Harbour Volleyball. I was on the board of the Event Finder Stadium and been heavily involved in our sports community, especially indoor facilities in the North Harbour region for the last 10 years. There was a document tabled around the build, around a case study of an indoor court facility in the northwest, and I suppose I want to highlight some concerns with some facts about the shortage of indoor facilities, firstly across Auckland, but also in the Harbour region. We fear that the business case from a sports point of view, and I'm representing 4 of the 6 indoor sports that are part of a plan, have not been really consulted on that document because the facts are really clear for us of the shortage. At the moment on the North Shore, you cannot book an indoor facility in terms 2 or 3 at a school or a council facility to play indoor sport at all. You need to book at least a year in advance. Basketball is now turning away. To give you an idea, Mairangi Bay Intermediate turned away 26 basketball teams from playing basketball at the North Shore Event Centre. 26 basketball teams is about 200 kids from playing basketball because of lack of facility. The concern is that we need to definitely generate more facilities across Auckland and in the North Harbour region, and this facility needs a decent business case to actually justify the value. My hat is with volleyball. Currently, volleyball doesn't have a facility to play in. We hire and negotiate with basketball and badminton on places we can play. It's got to the point now that we send through the winter season 200 people to go play at Rotatuna in Hamilton because it's cheaper to go book out a venue in Hamilton than it is to play in Auckland and get access to a facility. It's a high level effect, but put that into our school scenario. In the last 8 years, volleyball has grown from 500 to 2,000 participants. It looks like it's going to keep growing to be 3,000 to 4,000 participants. That is replicable across the 6 other indoor sports. To finish and hand on to, I suppose, where we get our facts and evidence from, Prince Harry quoted, sport, especially team sport, helps combat mental health issues. Indoor sports are hugely popular among the Asian population, the Polynesian population, Filipino and Korean. Their favourite sports are basketball, futsal, volleyball and badminton, and table tennis. By not creating facilities that allow these places to play, because we're already at capacity in our region and across Auckland, we're restricting opportunities for those populations to engage in sport and recreation. That has a greater effect on Auckland. Beside me, Corey Hitchin and Jude Reeves from Active. Active have recently commissioned a report around indoor facilities across Auckland.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. So I'm here on behalf of Active in Harbour and the local board to talk about the importance of region-wide facility plans. Active, Sport New Zealand and the Regional Sports Trust all encourage and support the development of this type of plan to provide evidence-based approaches, and due to economical and geographical pressures, it's essential that we take a network view across the whole region to make sure that planned and rational thought informs future sport facility decisions and investments. We've created the indoor court facility plan. It's been a unified and collaborative approach between Sport New Zealand, active in the RSTs, Auckland Council and 6 codes. And we've all worked together on this with an independent consultant. It's only recently been endorsed by the 24 organisations which it represents, and work is now underway to ensure that it's circulated to councillors, elected members and our wider stakeholders. And then the group will continue to work together to implement any recommendations from the plan. A robust process has been undertaken, and the approach aims to provide additional capacity, improved catchment coverage, and it will be complementary to the existing regional facility network. So what this means for Upper Harbour, there's the proposed area for development of their facility proposal sits within the North West region. Analysis reveals that there is current identified demand for increased indoor court provision, and there's been a proposed zone identified for future court infrastructure. The zone across the North West region is quite wide and indicates that further investigation would be recommended to determine the most suitable location for any planned developments. The plan also suggests that there is a need for a 4-court facility. In order to potentially reduce capital expenditure within the plan, we have identified that this could be composed of 2 indoor courts with 2 outdoor covered courts. This approach has been taken throughout the plan. However, for any of the identified developments, we do acknowledge that feasibility and business case analysis need to be undertaken to determine whether more courts than specified would be technically and financially viable. I'd also like to acknowledge that neighbouring local boards have proposed indoor court developments, and again, the purpose of planning is to take a wide view across the whole region and make sure that individual facility proposals aren't considered in isolation. Therefore, again, we would suggest robust feasibility and business case processes need to ensure that other developments are taken into consideration. Therefore, in this instance, the evidence from the indoor court facility plan does support that there would be demand for additional indoor court provision now within this area, and that further investigation by way of a detailed business case should be completed within this financial year, which would help to determine the site, scope and scale of any future indoor court developments. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey, did you want to?
Morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. On behalf of Harper Sport and the community that we represent and work alongside, I suppose this is a relatively concerning issue for us because it's not an issue that hasn't been raised through the previous long-term plans. It is an issue that has been raised. It's not a new issue. We've known as the Auckland region that there is a shortfall of indoor court facilities across the region. In representing the North Harbour Sports Council that we work alongside, they firstly would like to thank Auckland Council for their ongoing support into sport and recreation and making the city the most livable city. But a big part of that is addressing some of the shortfalls that we have, and it is a concern for not just our indoor court facilities but all sporting codes that we talk alongside about the inability for youth participation mainly, as well as the senior participation, to access indoor courts. There's ongoing discussions from our constituents around the implications of that, but the biggest highlight for us is, like mentioned previously with the Chamberlain Park concept, is that this is not a one local board just project that's only going to service that community. This is a regional issue that needs to be supported to get more detailed business case around each project and how they work into that network of facilities. So by and large, the North Harbour sports community that we represent would not only support this, getting a detailed business case for this facility, but all indoor court facilities across the board as well. Thank you.
Awesome, that's really clear, thank you.
So in summary, you look into the future, and how do you future-proof Auckland around indoor facilities? We are behind by 10 or 15 years now. If we don't act and have a evidence-based plan to fill the gaps and needs, we'll be further behind, and we've already seen that across many different aspects. The benefit of a plan in that part of the city is it will reduce the load on the busiest facility in the country, which is the Event Finder Stadium. It has 10,000 participants a week of community-based. Forecourt venue wants to grow. We've envisaged that we actually need one in the northwest, we need one in the north of a similar size. So thank you for your time, it's a critical issue.
Lovely, thank you. So 2 quick questions. I've got Councillor Watson and Councillor Walker.
If you don't mind, Richard, I'll just lump you and active together. So what I'm hearing very clearly is that, in your view, there's a huge demand as it stands, and that at any rate, if this is to be evidence-based, there should be a proper business case that's done for this area and decisions then made on that. Is that the view of Harbour Sport and Active?
Absolutely.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Good, concise question, Councillor. Councillor Walker.
So just adding something to Councillor Watson's question, as it goes to that business case, would you suggest that that business case needs to be rather open-ended in terms of the number of courts? So yes, it should consider 2 courts, but equally it could consider more, such as 4, and look at locational attributes.
Absolutely, yes.
And would it be fair to say that the location around the Whenuapai-Hobsonville area that the local board is suggesting is able to draw on a very large catchment in respect of the north? When I say north, I'm referring to North Shore, but equally the west, and the very large and growing community in Hobsonville and Whenuapai.
Yeah, to give you an example of the time travel to play indoor sports, the average time for a person to play indoor sport across Auckland is 41 minutes travel without traffic. So we know that the North Shore Event Centre, Event Finder Stadium, has 250 students travelling after school from Maharangi College to play basketball. We know that 500 students travel from Devonport Takapuna to the North Shore Event Centre, and it takes them an hour and a quarter to go play at the North Shore Event Centre. A facilities plan in prime locations will reduce travel time and therefore help ease the pressure, but also increase participation because suddenly we've got places to play.
And it would follow that there would be considerable sustainability and climate issues around that if we've got something that's better placed to cater for people and they've got less distance to travel.
We all know about the issues of transport. If we can reduce the transport barrier for kids playing sport, that'll actually help the health and well-being of our community.
And Chair, do you mind, because I do want to ask questions that haven't been preset sort of answers, if you don't mind, given that's part of my... I just thank you, because I'm represent part of the Northwest as well, so I do want to have a question. So some of it is around, in the report it talks about squash and badminton. And when I look at the distances and times to travel from, I'm saying Greenhithe, right, because that's kind of in the middle of the ward, which is a really, local board area, which is a funny configuration. It's something like 13 minutes to get to Forest Hill badminton and 13 minutes to get to Waitakere badminton. And squash, equally, not too far away, same distances from Greenhithe to Takapuna or Henderson. And if you're looking at offerings, squash and badminton are completely different configurations. You can't really share that space. So how do you think it might be a better spend of money to help upgrade those existing facilities for those sports and help them, and then concentrate on maybe a couple of courts for things like the basketball and the open spaces you can use for indoor netball?
I can talk to that in terms of the indoor court facility plan doesn't consider squash. So this is specifically looked at 6 codes, which are basketball, badminton, netball, futsal, table tennis and volleyball. And they were chosen because they can all use a similar wooden court surface when indoors, and they are quite complementary to shared facilities. So squash was not considered through this particular study. And we would suggest that in looking at indoor court developments, it would be a good idea to consider all 6 of those courts and the demand for all of them. within any future studies.
Question is, so I mean, if you've already got really short travelling times to these facilities already, because you talked about that as a consideration, 40 minutes, and I'm looking at in good traffic, 15 to 20 minutes radius on both sides of the Greenhithe Bridge.
So volleyball and badminton have formed a partnership already. You can't get time between the hours of 3 and 11:30 at night at the Pine Hill Badminton Centre every day of the week. They have formed a private partnership with a facility in Moringi Bay, and they've filled that facility. So they are interested at all the younger people don't need to play in the flash badminton centres. It's about participation. They are turning away badminton players because they can't get into the facilities to play. There are badminton courts at Massey University, unavailable. There are badminton courts at AET, unavailable. So badminton can be played on multi-sport facilities, and they would not target the high level, but it's about participation for everyone. And so that badminton are very keen on that side of things being advanced.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cooper. Last question, Councillor Philip Bynum.
Very short and sweet. Do you endorse or not the findings of the business case, especially in regards to growth?
In reading through the business case, the case looks relevant to the population very close to that area. And so I would say no from a point of using the population that would use that facility. You know, we already know the number of people that use one main facility. We know that Waitakere Trust Stadium is unavailable for public use because of the cost it is to guarantee the booking, which is obviously a few more k's around the corner. And so we need the ability to find places for the community to play. It's just a cost factor, an accessibility factor, a time factor. Schools already are full. So everyone defaults to, why don't you use the school space? Well, Westlake Boys just built a second court and it's full with their own students, with 2,000 people using 2 basketball courts. So the community struggles to use school facilities in prime time, term 2 and 3.
Madam Chair, can I just correct a statement made there? The Trust Stadium is 60% or 65% available for public use. It's 35% for other booked.
It's a good clarification. Thank you, Councillor Clone. An important fact for people to know. Now, I wondered if Councillor Walker and Watson would like to move the thanks. Okay, moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Watson. Thank you very much. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against?